from Catholic sources, like, I don't know if some of you remember Dr. Vieira, who used to be a Jesuit priest years ago, 40, 50 years ago. I don't know if you remember. And my dad translated for him at a church in Atlanta. But he said that the very first denomination that the Catholic Church went after was the Adventist Church. Now, why do you think that's true? Because the Adventist Church is really the only other church there is. You have a lot of Protestant denominations, but they're not fighting Rome. They're keeping Sunday, and they're cooperating with Rome. Now, there's true Christians in those churches, and they will have to stand up eventually. But the Adventist Church is really the only other, there's only two churches in the world that count in the Christian denomination. There's Seventh-day Adventists and Roman Catholics. They're on opposite sides. And the Catholic Church knows where the message is going to be preached from. Now, it's not just the human wisdom that tells them that. Did you know? I mentioned a friend of mine. I mentioned a friend of mine that was raised in Angola by demons. Do you remember I told you that story one time? As a baby, he was given to the demons to raise, and he became a priest. And the demons taught him every evil thing there is, from killing children, sacrificing children, eating their hearts, to infiltrating Christian homes, playing with children as a child, discouraging them from believing in God, all these kind of things. But then one day he heard of Jesus, and in his mind he said, "Lord, if you exist, I want to know more about you." And Jesus came, and they talked together mind to mind for 4 hours. After that conversation, Jesus held out and said, "You want some proof that I love you?" And he showed him the scars on his hands. He knelt down and gave his heart to the Lord, and he is a consecrated Seventh-day Adventist Christian today, living in Angola. But he told me, he said, in the Vatican, I've been there many times, I used to travel all around the world. He said, I would just close my eyes and open them, and I would be there. Anywhere in the world. Just close your eyes and open it. He said, but sometimes I would take the airplane just to kind of do something different. Just to find out what it's like to travel for normal people. But I never travel that way. But I've been to the Vatican many times. And in the Vatican, he said, there is a special room that is the throne room of Satan. He has his throne there. And the Pope is not the boss. Satan is. The Pope just obeys what he's told. He does what he's told. And he said, and so the Pope gets his information and his orders from Satan himself. So Satan knows that his worst enemy is God's anointed people after the latter rain falls. They're going to carry the message to the world, and it will be unstoppable. There is no way to stop it. But he said, that's why Rome knows so much, because they get all their information from Satan and their orders. So the Adventist Church is definitely the church that has the truth and is going to preach in a loud cry, and it's just going to be a head-on collision between truth and error. Rome on one side, the 144,000 on the other. And so that's why the priority for Rome was to infiltrate the Adventist Church. And not only the vice president that came to talk to my wife and I, with the secretary of the GC, who said with his own mouth that Jesuits were his friends and counselors. Also, another friend of mine from Guyana, a doctor, I won't mention his name, but he taught at Andrews University in the theology department for a long time. His wife was called by Loyola University in DC and said, we would like for you to teach for us. She said, I can't go. I live in Berrien Springs, Michigan. My husband is a professor of theology, and I can't be working in DC separate from my husband. Oh, they say, don't worry about it. If you're willing to take the job, we'll make the arrangements. One call to the General Conference, and her husband was transferred to the General Conference so she could teach at Loyola University. That's a lot of influence. One phone call. Another physician friend of mine from Trinidad and Tobago went to the General Conference, and they were sat down. They said, there's a yellow line on the floor. Don't cross that yellow line. Just stay right there. We'll have somebody, only people who work here can go in and come across there. And then she said, no problem. She sat down waiting till all the other physicians came. They were going to have a meeting for doctors and dentists. And so she was sitting there. And then she said a bunch of nuns, all dressed like nuns, came in and they walked right in, went up the elevator and went to work. She said, excuse me, do those nuns work here? Well, that's why they went across the yellow line. They work there. And I don't know, that's what she told me. But the actions in the Morelos University in Mexico, we have 2 Jesuit priests that are part of the seminary board of directors. So that was part of the laws of Mexico. They had to have 2 academic people on the board. And so we have 2 Jesuit priests that help to decide what our theology students study. We've been under attack for a long time. But while Sister White was alive, every time they came God would give her a vision. And she would see the person at Pacific Union College. One lady was interviewing for a job. And while the president of the university was it was a college at that time, PUC, was interviewing that person, the secretary walked in and said, Elder so-and-so, here's a letter from Sister White. He told the lady, just a minute, and he read it, and he looked at the lady, he read the letter, looked at her. Remember, in those days, it took 3 months for a letter to come across on the boat. So written 3 months ago, and he's looking at the lady, and then he said to the lady, would you mind reading this? The lady said, she read it, said, there will be a lady dressed in this color of dress, qualified with these qualifications, seeking a job with you. Do not hire her. She comes from the opposition, an infiltrator. The lady threw that letter down and walked out the door. So as long as the old lady was alive, as the enemy puts it, we can't do anything because God always shows her. But when the lady died, immediately aggressive infiltration of the church. And that's what we're suffering today. We're suffering those influences because naturally the enemy would attack from trying to penetrate to get inside so that they could affect the direction of our church. We've talked about the changes. Slowly we've gone toward the world, spiritual adultery with Rome. Now it is time to talk about the changes we must make to draw closer to God. There's no doubt we've been under attack. There's no doubt whatsoever. Remember, the fact that we admit that we're under attack is not a criticism, it's a fact. We've been attacked by the enemy. The problem is we've given in. We've allowed this to happen because there's benefits attached. You go along with Rome, there's financial benefits. There is government subsidies. There is personal benefits. The president of Bolivia, the ex-president, the previous president of Bolivia, when he was president, he was communist, anti-Catholic, anti-Christianity. He was a sun worshiper. Whenever he went anywhere, he would sacrifice an animal to the sun god. So we're not talking about a secular guy. We're talking about a pagan president, right? And the president that we have today in Bolivia, he does the same thing. Came from the same party, but the previous one was worse than he was. But guess what? After he left the presidency, a Catholic priest from Argentina published on an interview a copy of his statement, financial statement, that the ex-president had at the Vatican. $15 million. Now, how did a communist president who hates Christianity have $15 million in the Vatican bank? Behind the scenes, they're still working together, you see. And so there's personal benefits, there's personal financial benefits to working together with Rome. If you can be bought, you will be bought. Do you have a price? What's your price, by the way? What is it that you have to be offered in order for you to cave in? Now think about it. Some people don't have a price. Most people do. What is it you dreamed of? What is it you really would like to have that if somebody offered it to you, you would say, okay. Remember, most people have a price. You say, no, not me. I don't have a price. Well, I hope you don't. I hope that you cannot be